All right, so the first thing that you need to do is creating a timeline. Now, simple settings, just right click over here, go to create a new timeline, unselect project settings, into the format, and then just use vertical resolution and hit create. That's it. Now, before we start, I would like to break down what we're going to be doing in this video. Now, I have this sample video from him, from Bart VFX, and I'm going to just play this and show you how we're going to make this. So right here, as you can see, there's a lot of text animation going on and very fast animation going on. So what we're going to do is we're going to, first of all, make all the text animations. As you can see, the one right here, we're going to make this one first. Then we're going to make this one, these two text over here, then this one, and then finally these ones. So first of all, like I said, we're going to make these text animations, only the text animations by themselves. We're going to make separate compositions for that. And then we're going to combine them together and then add these backgrounds. As you can see, the background right here, as you can see, these elements coming in, and then this background right here, and then finally this background. So that's the second phase or the second step. We're going to then make these backgrounds. And finally, the third thing that we're going to do is the transitions that you can see. So right here, as you can see, this transition, and then you can see this transition, and finally, yeah, so simple transitions, as you can see. So we're going to cover all of these different things step by step in this video. Okay, so to begin with, we need to create the fusion compositions for the text. So a better way to do that would be by creating a new bin for all of the text-based fusion compositions, just like I have right here. So this is what I did already, but of course I'm going to show you how to do that. So right click over here and click on a new bin. So let's just call this text animations. Go right in and then right click over here and then click on new fusion composition. So from here you can rename this to, let's say, text 1 and hit create. Don't worry about the duration. We can just change that later on. So let's double click and this will take us to the fusion page for this fusion composition. Now let's drag in our text, connect this with the media out. And over here you will see that this is giving us a different format than the one that we had created the timeline for. So for this, it says 1920 by 1080, although we had it in the vertical format, which was a 180 by 1920. So how do we change that? Well, what you can do is you can go right here to the image, and from here you can change the width to, actually, first of all, you need to unselect auto resolution, and then you can just switch them. So 180 by 1920. So this is something that you might need to do for all the fusion compositions that we're going to create right now, because we're creating them separately. We're not creating them within the timeline. So we need to make sure that these are set at a vertical resolution. So let's go over to the text and click on this text right here. Let's just call this 3D text. You can, of course, call this anything. And the font that I'm using would be Montserrat at black. Let's change the size to 0.2, and there you go. Make sure your text is selected, and then right here in the text box, right click and then click on for character level styling. Now this will add this modifiers tab, enable this. So make sure to go over to it. And then right here, we will have our text just like we wrote. But from here, we can individually make animations to each of our character. So for example, let me just go back to the timeline. You will notice right here that there is some, you can say, I don't know how to say this, but it's like a opacity kind of thing going where each alphabet is changing the opacity. So the way we can achieve that is by using this character level styling. And you can, let me just show you. So if you zoom in right here and select this D, so you can just drag this right here and you will be able to select the D. You can also select this 3. So you can select any character That's what character level styling basically is. So let's select the D right here and then go over to shading. And by the way, notice something, that if you don't select anything, you won't be able to see anything. So you need to select this any, or you can say, or you can even select multiple characters at the same time. But let's just start with D and go over to shading and then change the opacity to, let's say, 0.5. All right. Now let's go back to the text and make sure that you create, it says right click here to animate character. So you make sure to create a keyframe, and this will be at 0. So here we can see that we have created a keyframe for this opacity, which we can change it, of course, using the same process that we did. But before we do that, let's also add different opacities for other text. For example, this E, let's go right here and change this to 0.8. Then let's go over at this T, change this to maybe 0.7. Okay, so now let's go over to maybe five frames. And now let's go back to the text and make sure to create another keyframe right here. Then go back to this shading. And now let's change this maybe back to 1. This one, let's also change this to 1. And this one, let's also change this to 1. But this time, let's select this one and reduce this a little bit and do the same thing for this X, something like this. And of course, I'm going to repeat the process again, but now I will quickly do this, but you get the idea. You can now do this for at least up till 20. So I will just do it up till 20 frames. So let me just quickly do that. Okay, so here I have created some keyframes. So if I play this right now, you will notice the movement right here. So the same kind of effect that we saw in the timeline, we are able to achieve that. But instead of just going over the whole, you can say, timeline and doing this again and again, what you can do is go over to spline. Now select your text right here and then click on the zoom to fit and make sure to select all the keyframes and press Ctrl C. Now this will allow you to copy all these keyframes. And now let's go over to 25, and right here where your this cursor is, what you can do is right click and then you will get the option for paste point values. So click on that and now you will see that, okay, we have more keyframes now. See? So you won't need to do this again and again. Now let's go over to 50, do the same thing, right click and click on paste point values. And now let's go over to 75, do the same thing. And then right here add maybe, yes, 100. Let's do this again. All right, I think we're done. So if you play the whole thing, now you will see this is how it looks. Okay, so now just to add this effect, as you can see that this is moving in from this side. As you can see right here, it's moving in. Now, of course, there are some other effects right here you can see, but I won't be going into that much depth. I will just create a simple one so that you can also follow along. All right, so we're going to keep this simple, but let's do a little bit movement as well. Let's go back to this composition. And by the way, you can always double click to go back to the composition. It's not that difficult. Now make sure that this text is selected and click on transform. This will add this transform node. And then right here, let's do something. Let's move this in. So let me just zoom out and create a keyframe at center and size. Now let's go over to 0 and then move this to, let's say, 0.55. And also let's go with change the size to 0.95, something like this. All right, now go over to spline and make sure that this transform is only selected. And now click on select all these keyframes and hit S on the keyboard. Now I'm going to unselect the size and just using the displacement, let me just zoom in. and slightly squeeze this in. So let's see how this looks. Okay, perfect. So we are done with our text one, and now you will be able to use this. So for example, you can just drag this right here, and here you go. All right. So we're going to do the same thing for the other text as well. We're done with this first text. Now we're going to do this second text right here. So for this one, we're again going to create a new Fusion composition. Let's call this text 2. Head over to this composition and let's drag in our text, connect this with the media out. Again, you need to go ahead and change the resolution from here. And let's go back to the text. By the way, just as a side note, you don't really need to do this. You don't really need to change this. You can keep this in the default settings, but I'm just going to do this so that this matches with the vertical resolution that I'm going for. But just so that you know, you don't really have to do this. If you want, you can do it. If you don't want, it's okay if you leave it. Again, the font will be Montserrat at bold, and the size will be at 0.14. All right. Now let's go over to 20, create a keyframe at tracking, and then go over to 0 frames and then change this to 0.7, something like this, right? So right here at 20, let's go over to layout from here and then change the type to path. And now we're going to draw a line right here. So let's zoom in. So I'm going to draw a line with a curve. So let's start with right here and then right here. All right. Now select this modify only and then select this point right here and then you can adjust this accordingly. So something like this and then something like this. All right. And what we can do is create this keyframe at position on path, then go over to 0 and then change this, or you can say move this right here where we are starting. So something like this. See? And then right here at 20, okay, so make sure that you have this keyframe at 1 and you can create this keyframe from right here, which where it says right click here for shape animation and then go over to 20. Now we're going to change the shape. So we're going to move this back to normal. So we need to move this down, then like this. Or you can say first straighten this. Make sure this is straight, both these points. And then you can move this right here. So if you play this, this is how it looks. Now let's go over to spline and from here select these keyframes in the text section. Make sure you select all of them like this and then hit S on the keyboard. And if you play this, this is how it will look. So while you have this text selected, make sure this text is selected and then click on this blur so that this connects. And then go over to 10, change the blur size to 0, create a keyframe, then go over to 0 and then change the blur size to 20. So this is how it will look. So here we have our second text animation done as well. Now let's go back to the main timeline and just so that we can see, as you can see, this is how it was coming in. And of course, you can make more adjustments if you want to, but let me just bring in this text right here so that you can see this is how it looks. All right, so let me just remove this. And now we're going to create the third one, which is going to be this text that you see that comes in after this text that we just created. As you can see, this text zooming from coming in from outside and then this letter coming in. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and create a new Fusion composition. Let's call this text 3. Head over to this composition. Let's drag in our text, connect this, and let me just resize this. Go to text and then write your text. using the same Montserrat, but this time at extra bold, you can say right here. And then let's change the size to 0.16, 0.16, and then go over to layout. And from here, we're going to change some settings in the rotation. So let's go with 20, minus 20. Let's go with minus 20 in the y-axis, and then at the x, let's go with 20. So you have this 3D sort of, you can say, positioning for this text. All right, so the next thing is go back to the text and then right click and do the same thing that we did for text one, which is to select this character level styling, then go over to modifiers, and then from here, just select this F from here, this last letter, and then create a keyframe. Yeah, create a keyframe at this, right click here to animate, go over to transform, and then from here you can change the offset and move this outside the screen. So something like this. Or you can even go with minus one. Let's go with minus one. All right, and now let's go over to, let's say, 20 or 25. Maybe let's go over to 15 frames, and then bring this right in, or you can just double click this and this will go back to the position or where it was. So if you play this, this is how it looks. And I'm just going to go over to this spline, select this keyframe and hit S on the keyboard, make a little bit change, and there you go. Now it looks like a smooth animation. Now we need to also make this in a way that it zooms in on our screen. So for that, you can go over to layout and let's go over to 20, create a keyframe at size center Z, create a keyframe right here, and then go over to 0, and you can move this outside the screen, maybe minus 1. So this is how it will look. And then let's also go all the way to the end, and from here let's go ahead and create another keyframe. And actually right here at 20, let's go ahead and keep this somewhere around minus 0.23, so that this will keep on animating throughout the whole scene. So something like this. Now you will notice one thing, that it's not quite visible where this F is coming in. So maybe we can move this somewhere around 25. For this, we can go over to, make sure you select the text and go over to spline. And then from here, let's unselect this layout and only select this, right click here Z. And what you can do is just slightly move out, go over to this 25, select this frame, and then move this right here. So if you play this, this is how it will look. Okay, so for this one, we also need to add this blur, just like we did before. And let's go over to 10, create a keyframe at blur size, which will be at 0. Then go over to 0 frames and then change this to 20. Or let's go even higher. Let's go with 50. Let's try 50. Okay, it would be too much blur, so let's just settle with 30. All right, so we're done with the third text animation as well. As you can see, it's kind of the same as we have right here. Oh, one more thing you can do is go over to spline, and this time let's select our layout center Z, and then select these keyframes. So first of all, right here, the first two, and hit S on the keyboard. So this is how it will look. You don't need to do it in the one at the end. You can just do it right here, the one at the beginning. So let's just slightly move this, see if we can get something different. Yeah, perfect. So there you have it. So we have the third animation done as well. Now we're going to move on to other animations, but this time we're going to see how to do these. You can say elements. These elements are coming in, animating these dots, you can say. Now we're going to see how to do that. All right, so for this, let's again create a new composition, but this time let's call this dots animation, something like this. Hit create and then move on or double click on this and then add this background, connect this right here, go over to image, change the resolution. Right, and let's go over to the color, change the color code to this one. You can copy this, hit OK, and then drag in this ellipse, connect this with the background. Right click on the width and click on expression and connect this with the height. Now let's change the height to 0.05. So you will have this dot right here. And now let's also go ahead and duplicate this. So for this, make sure your background is selected and click on Control Space, search for duplicate, and right here go over to the copies and change this to 6. Okay, and also in the center, we're going to change the X to 0.4. So you will get something like this. Let's go and slightly move this in so that all of these are visible. So maybe around 4.1. Yeah, around 4.1. Yeah, looks good. Now for this, we can add this transform node, position this in the center or wherever you want to position this, but we're going to just keep this at center and then later on we can change the position. Let's go ahead and also add in a glow node. So make sure your background is selected, press Control Space, search for glow. Let's change this to the glow size, change this to 50 and the glow to 0.85. Then let's also add in a blur node and let's change this to 20 or let's bring this down to 15. I think, yeah, this looks good. So one way of doing this is to just make one animation and then use this composition 2 times in your clip. So first of all, let's do the animation so that you know what I'm talking about. Go over to duplicate. First, let's do this. Go over to 20 frames, create a keyframe, add copies, then go over to 0 and change this to 0. So this is how it will come in. And now we can also use the transform to move this outside the screen. Let's go over to 30. Actually, let's go over to 15. Yes, over at 15, let's create a keyframe at center. Go over at 0 and move this outside the screen. Something like this. Okay, and now let's go over to spline and make sure this transform is selected. Select the nodes and hit S on the keyboard and then slightly move this in. So something like this. All right, so let me just show you what I'm talking about. So if we go over to the main timeline, you can see we have 2 of these elements here. You can use this multiple times if you want. So the way you can do it is just by dragging this in and you will see this is how it looks. But what you can do is go over to the transform and from here you can change the rotation angle and you can change the position of this. So this is how it will come in and then you can duplicate this and move this around, something like this. So, and you can just slightly change the position in the timeline. So it will give you like this sort of an effect. Or the other way is to do it in this composition twice. So you can do it in both ways. What I'm going to do is just to keep things simple, I'm going to just use this one just like this. And then just like I showed you, I'm going to add 2 of them side by side. All right, so we have this element animation also done, or I don't know, dot animation, whatever you want to call it, but that's also done. Now let's move on to this one, this time, as you can see. So for this, again, let's create a fusion composition, call this text number 4. Move over to this, drag in a text, connect this, and change the resolution. Then go over to the text, and from here, let's just type in our text, change the font to Montserrat, And this time we're going with black. Let's also change the size to 0.3. Now you need to right click over here and then click on follower, this follower, and then go over to the modifiers tab. From here, we need to change the delay or the order to left to right. So this will go in from left to right, and then let's go ahead and change the delay to 0.1 or 1. Yeah, let's go with 1. Then let's go over to the transform. And from here, let's go over to 20. Create a keyframe at this size. So you can click on this size and create keyframe right here, X and Y, then go over to 0 and change these to 0. Now, one more thing we need to do is click on offset, create a keyframe right here, and this will create this path. But what you can do is just double click on follower once again, and then you can go over to 0, and let's change the Y to minus 0.3. So if you play this is how it will look. And you can, of course, go ahead, play around with this. You can change the delay, and let me just keep this at automatic just so that we can see. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to keep the order at automatic, and this is how it will look. Now, one last thing for this one is make sure your text is selected and click Control Space, search for radial blur, and we're going to add some radial blur to it. So go over to 20, create a keyframe right here, and then add 0. Let's change this to 0.78. So this is how it will look. All right, so we have this text done as well. And of course, you can change the color of this if you want to. You can see that this is a red color. So let's do that. Let's just go ahead and go over to shading. And from here, you can change the type to gradient. And right here at this part, you can just slightly move this up. So maybe something like this. And there you go. Actually, let's go a little bit higher. Yeah, something like this. So that's up to you. You can go ahead and change the color, set the color wherever you want. So this is what I'm going with. All right, so next one is this text right here, complexity. As you can see, there is this line coming in, crossing it out, and then there's also some movement, but we're going to worry about the movement later on. Right now, we just need this text, as you can see, and then you will notice that it's the same as we did with the follower modifier in the text 4. So what you can do is just copy this text 4, Control C, and then unselect, and then Control V to paste it, and we will have a copy. So let's call this text 5. Go over to this text. We're going to keep everything else the same. The only thing that we need to change is the shading, which is going to come back to the solid color like this. And the other things that we need to do is change the text itself. Let's type in complexity, and we're going to change the size to, let's say, 0.15. So let's go with 0.15, and everything else is the same. Now all we need to do is add in that line that you saw. So for that, you can just select your text, add in this merge node, and then add this background, change the color to red, and then also add this polygon. Connect this with the background and the background with the merge. Click on polygon, and then you can zoom in and then create this line right here. Something like this. Now you can unselect the solid and change the border width to 0.001, or let's go with 0.002. All right. And then you can just select this border style to flat, and there you go. I'm going to unselect this, right click here for shape animation. We don't need this right now. So once we have this text coming in, we can go over at 40, create a keyframe at length, and then go over at maybe, let's say, 25, and then change this to 0. So this is how it will look. Actually, I will just change the border width to 0.01. This looks much better. Now let's go over to spline, and from here we can select this. Make sure you have only the polygon keyframes selected, the length that we have right here, and select them and hit S on the keyboard. And then you can just slightly move them in. So this is how the whole thing looks now. So we have this animation done. Now we're going to do the other animation that we saw right here, which is this one right here. Okay, one more thing that I missed in this one is the low highlight that you can see. So as you can see, the text comes in and then it highlights and then fades away. So we need to do that by going over here, then right here. So make sure your radial blur is selected, press Control space and search for glow. Right here at 40, we're going to just change everything to 0, create keyframes, then go over at 50, change, or let's say, let's go at 55 and change the glow size to 80 and the glow to 0.9 or 0.8. Let's go with 0.8. Then let's go over at 70 and create keyframes so that this remains static throughout this part, and then go over all the way to the end. We can then change this back to 0. So if we play this now, all right. So if you bring this in, you can see this is how it will look. Now the next one was this text that comes in right afterwards it. Okay, so we're going to create this text now. And for this one, let's go ahead and right click on this text 5, and then, or you can just copy this by Control C. Make sure you select it, press Control C, unselect everything, and then Control V. Let's rename this to text 6. Double click, and then this will take you to the composition. And from here, all we need to do is just change the text name. So, or you can say the text, the words of the text. And you can just remove the glow from here. We don't need the glow anymore. And we also don't need this polygon. We don't need this polygon particularly. So we will just remove this and then add this polygon once again. And let me just unselect this background for now so we can see how it looks. Or you can keep it on. It's okay. Once you connect this, it will disappear. All right. So once you have this polygon selected, now we can create a circular shape. So right here, I'm going to create a circular shape. Let me do that. So something like this. Now you can click on this modify only icon, and then you can adjust this one by one. Yeah, something like this. And now let's go over to the border width, change this to 0.01. Let's see how this looks. All right, okay. And now we can change the border style to flat. Actually, with the border width, let's go with 0.005. Yeah, this looks much better. All right. So all we need to do now is just to animate this. So we're going to go over to 30, create a keyframe at length. Then let's go over to 50, create a keyframe at length again. Then the one at 30, let's change this to 0. So this is how it will look. And now you will notice that there was this keyframe right here at 55. It's okay, you can leave this or you can delete this. It doesn't matter. It's just this right click here for animation thing right here. So what I usually do is I remove every keyframe that I don't need, which is unnecessary, so that it doesn't mess up anything else or I don't forget what it is about. So here we have it. And one more thing is going over to the spline and then doing the same thing we did before, selecting the keyframes, hit S on the keyboard and move them in. Perfect. So we can go back to the timeline. Now, of course, one thing is that this was in green color. We can, of course, change this to a different color if you want to. You can do that. You can go with green colors, something like this. Yeah, somewhere around here, 0.7. Okay, so we have this done. We can go back to the timeline. And okay, one more thing is the glow. You can see a glow around this, and even yeah, you can see a glow around his. So you can go back to the text 6, and then right here we can add a glow. But the thing is that this will affect every single thing, so we won't be able to use this right here. What we can do is we can use this right here. So besides your, or you can say select your background, click on Control Space and search for glow. And now you can make the changes that you want. So let's keep this at 10 and then yeah, 0.835 and then let's go with 20. Yeah, let's go with 20. Okay, and let's bring this in, see how this looks. All right, so we have our text animations done. Now we're going to just piece them together and also add the backgrounds that we saw in the video. And after that, we're going to add some transitions as well. Okay, so let's start and let's bring in the text one right here. And you will notice that, okay, you had this background and this is not very hard to make. You can just literally use this, go over to generators, use a solid color, yeah, or a grayscale, I think, or you can even use a fusion composition if you want. But of course, I won't show you this one. What we will do is we will start from here. So right here is just a dark background, and then we have this transition, and then there's another text. So right here, when we have this coming in, we can go over to let's say somewhere around here, and then we can trim this. Okay, and then the next text will start, which will be the text 2. Let's bring in the text 2. All right. Now, of course, we will do a transition. We will do a transition, but just so that you can get a good idea of how we're going to do the transition, we're also going to do some effects on this text as well. We did not do it in the composition itself, but now we will do it on this timeline. So for that, let's go over here and search for blur. Make sure you're at OpenFX. And now you can use this Gaussian blur, bring this into your text one, and right here you can go over to the end and create a keyframe at horizontal length, strength, and vertical strength. Then go over to, let's say, I don't know, a few frames back. Yeah, let's go a few frames back, maybe at 720, and change this to 0. So if you play this, okay, so let's increase this a little bit. Let's increase this to 8, 810. Yeah, let's go with 810. Okay, so for me, this is different. I know this will be different for you, but let's add 5 more frames. So, okay, so we need to go back to this effect and right here at 4, 0.4, let's remove them and then go all the way to the end and then add 0.4. Okay, so if you play this, this is how it will look. And actually, let's increase this. So let's change this to, okay, so let's go all the way to 1. Yeah, let's go all the way to 1. Yeah, perfect. Okay. we have this simple transition done right now, but of course we're going to add some more things to it later on. And now we can bring in this text 3 right here where, yeah, right here. And of course, we're going to add some effects to this one as well. So let's bring in our Gaussian blur on this one. And then right here at, okay, right here, around somewhere around here, let's create a keyframe at 0.4. Then go right here and then change this to 0. Okay, okay, perfect. And now we can also like trim this. Yeah. And we can also reduce this. So let me just reduce this even further, both of them. Now we also had the background for this, which were these dot animations. So let's bring them in right here. All right. So now we're going to just manually change the positioning of this. Let's use the Y right here to position this at the bottom. Change the rotation angle a little bit, something like this. And then just add this in again and slightly make this offset and then reduce the length. So just like I have already shown you how to do this, so I'm just doing the same thing. And this time for this one, we're going to move this up and we're going to change this right here. Okay, and one more thing we can do is we can flip this. So make sure that this one is selected and then you can just flip this on this side. So just check what happens. It comes from that side. Now we can slightly adjust the X. All right. So here you can see this is the this is how it uh, comes together. You have these different pieces and then you piece them together to make a scene. All right. So the next one was this time. Perfect. All right. And okay, let's keep this at 13. Few seconds. Of course, this is manually. You can It depends on the kind of speed that you want for your animation. You can go even faster than I'm going. You can even, make a cut right here. You can make a cut right here. So that's up to you. That depends on you. This is why I'm doing it in a freestyle sort of way. So that's up to you. But of course, right now what I'm showing you is how to piece things together. You have these different compositions made, and now you can piece them together. Actually, let's go ahead and make this fast, to be honest, because this is quite fast. So right here, we can, again, I think we need to remove the Gaussian blur for now. And I'm going to reduce this, bring them in. Yeah, okay. So I will do that Gaussian blur thing later on. Don't worry about it. And then this one right here, this text right here, we're going to move this in even, uh, okay, just a little bit earlier. And we're going to move them. We're also going to move them, these dot animations. Then right here, where this ends, where this final, you can say the text animation ends, you can trim this and then bring this one in. So now I think this is more fast than before. So yeah, this is basically what I was telling you. Like you can adjust this according to how fast you want this to be. Now for this one, Okay, so for this one, we're going to go with this right now. This length that we have, bring in another fusion composition, which will be the background. Now let's go over to this one, right click, open in Fusion Composition. Okay, and let's go right here, open in Fusion page, add in a background, connect this, add in a merge node, and also add in this fast noise, connect this with the merge, and then right here, go over to details, change this to 10, contrast to 10 as well, or 5, yeah, contrast to 5, and then the scale to 1. Okay, and then we're just going to add a little bit seed, just slightly. Then go over to the color, and from here we're just going to add this brown color right here, and then also change this to black or something. So just go with a dark color. So right here, as you can see, this is how it will look. And let's go ahead and add in another merge node, add in a background, change this to gradient, and then add in this rectangle, connect this with the background and background with the merge. Now in the rectangle, we're going to unselect solid, change this to 0.01, and then let's increase the height all the way to 1 and move the Y so that this is above, and then change the corner radius to, let's say, 0.5, or let's say 0.3. 0.3. 0.2 is okay as well. Yeah, 0.2 seems fine. And actually, let's go back to the rectangle, increase the width as well, 0.6. And then also let's change the border width to 0.005. Let's go back to the timeline, see how this looks. Okay, perfect. Now what you can do is select both of these, right click, and then click on new compound clip. And you can call this whatever. Actually, let me make sure that I'm in the folder right here. So now select both of these, right click, click on new composition. Now I'm just going to call this for rotation because I'm going to rotate both of them. And let's do that. Let's go right here, create a keyframe at zoom, position, angle, pitch, and yaw, and then go all the way to the end. Change this. First, let me zoom this in a little bit. Change the pitch and the yaw like this. Position this right here so that the whole screen is covered. And now if you play this, okay, perfect. Actually, we should start this from the beginning. So we can just create a keyframe right here. And then the ones right here, we can just remove them. Yeah, so let's start from the beginning to the end. All right, perfect. All right, and now for this final one, these text right here, where we have this one, and then we also have this one, this text. Okay, wait, let me just remove that. First, let's see where this text ends, right here. Then we're going to add this text right here, and then cut this from here, remove this, and now add in a Fusion composition. Right click, open in Fusion page, add in a background, change the color to red, connect this. All right, so make sure your background is selected and click on this paint node. Now we're going to go over to the color, change this to black, then click on this brush controls, increase the size to 1, and now also select this stroke from here. And then you can just randomly draw these lines like this. And now what we need to do is make sure to add this blur node and increase the blur size like this. Right, and actually let's go back to the background, and from here we're going to select this four corner And we're just going to keep this at red, but this will be at a darker, you can say, shade. Just slightly make it different, don't overdo it, just slight difference. And now also after the blur, let's add in this brightness contrast node and change the gain to 0.7. Yeah, 0.7. And then, okay, so one more thing you can do is that right now it looks kind of messy. So you can go over to the paint and then increase the red from here slightly. You can change the color from here. So just a slight texture. We're just looking for a slight texture. And of course, you can go with any color that you want. So right here, as you can see, this is how it looks. And let's reduce this even further. Let's reduce the gain even further, like this, maybe 0.45. So it actually looks like a background. Yeah, so I think this looks much better. And now we need to just position the text right here. So first of all, we have this text coming in. We can create a keyframe at position and zoom. Then right here, we can reduce the size of this and move this somewhere around here. Okay, no, wait. Let me remove them from here and then go right here, somewhere around here, where we have this text coming in. And then we're going to reduce the size of this and going to change the position of this. All right. Now we're also going to animate this text coming in. So right here, let's create a keyframe at zoom and position. Then right here, we can zoom this, move the X and the Y. Perfect. And one more thing you might have noticed in the sample that we have is that this was in a 3D kind of format. So you can just use this pitch and yaw to do that. So let's do that. So let's just go ahead and change this to minus 0.2. So you will get that same thing that you're looking for. And one more thing is to, again, use the blur, Gaussian blur for this, for the text in the background, this one. So right here, let's make sure this is selected, go over to effects. Then right here, we're going to create a keyframe right here where the simplicity, the other text is coming in. And then right here, we're going to change this to 0. So there you go. Okay. One more thing I think we should do is to add some background for this one as well, because it kind of looks very plain and dull. So we can do that by adding a fusion composition right here. Let me reduce this, bring this in right here. Open in Fusion page, and then from here we can just add this background, connect this with the media out right here, and then change this to gradient. Then we can just move this. Yeah, let's move this one in. Actually, we should change this to angle, or let's go with radial. Yeah, let's go with radial. And then let's change this to black and this to white. Move this in the center and then increase this. So you will get that same background kind of effect. So now what we need to do here is make the animation from here to somewhere around here. We need to move this from this white sort of thing to white sort of color, or you can say gradient, to black. So right here at 0, let's create a keyframe at background. Let's go with this one. Create a keyframe for all of them, let's say. Then let's go over at 5, and then first of all, let's change this to, actually we don't need this. We don't need a keyframe over here at gradient. We just need it at radial. Then let's go over here at 5, and then let's go over at this white one and just bring this to black. And actually, we didn't even need this at gradient type. We just need it at gradient. So you will see the color change from here to here. And we can just move this out, reduce, increase the size, something like this. So here you can see we have our backgrounds done as well. So now let's move on to adding transitions to this. All right, so for the first transition, what we need to do is, first of all, let's move all of these up. Okay, not that up, just right here, and then also this text up as well. So what we need to do is, okay, one more step up, okay, right here, because we need to add the transition right here beneath this. So for this, we can drag in this fusion composition, reduce the size a little bit, and let me just zoom this in. Okay, so let's change the clip duration to, let's say 10. Yeah, let's go with 10. Move this somewhere around here, or even let's go even lower. Let's go with 7. Let's go with 7, and then move this somewhere around here. Right click, open in Fusion page, and then drag in this background, and then change the color to this color code. You can just copy this, and then hit OK. Add this to the media out. Now drag in this ellipse, connect this with the background, and let's go ahead and change some settings. So for this one, we can first of all change the width. Let's go with 0.2, and the height, let's increase this 1.5, and soft edge, just go with 0.2. Then let's move this somewhere around here, and let's create a copy of this. Control C and then Control V, connect this to this ellipse, and then move this one right here. Actually, let's increase the width a little bit for both, something like this. Now select your background and click on paint, then go over to brush controls. You can keep the size as is, but let's go ahead and change the color to black. Make sure you select the stroke, and then just go ahead and add these strokes. Now go over to the modifiers, and from here you can just change this. So let's try to, okay, make sure to double click on stroke 1, and then from here you can just change some settings. So right here you can increase and decrease the size, increase the softness. So what I will do is I will increase the softness, not, don't go all the way to 2, because then this will disappear. So maybe somewhere around 1.5, this works for me. Now let's go ahead, add in a blur node, change this to 100. And okay, so okay, not 100, let's just somewhere where we can also see the lines, and maybe at 50 we can also like see the lines right here. And let's go ahead, after the blur, let's add in this color curves. At 0, create a keyframe right here, and make sure to change the mode to animate color correct. Okay, so at 3 we can just, or first, before changing it anything at 3, just go over at 6 and also create another keyframe here. Then the one at 3, just reduce this. So if you play this, this is how it will look. And one more thing we need to do is, okay, so here you can see the problem. We need to move this back up at 6. Okay, Perfect. Now finally add in this transform. And for this one, create a keyframe at 4, at center, and then at 6, just move it outside the screen. Something like this. So if you go back to the main timeline, this is how it will look. All right, so maybe you can see this sharp curve right here. We don't need that. We can go back to the composition. Now, one thing right here I notice is that we do have this sharp cut. So for that, we can just reduce the width maybe. So let's try that. Let's go right here and make sure this ellipse is selected and then try to reduce the width. Yeah. So if you reduce the width, this will look good. So if you play this, perfect. Okay, so one more thing I would like to add is this sound effect for the transition. And for this, let me just unmute the track. Okay, I think this looks okay. So let's see how the whole thing looks. Okay, perfect. Now we can just drag this, use the same thing, and we can even copy both of them, text and the sound effect. Move this right here, and now there will be a transition right here. But for this one, we will make some changes. So let's go ahead in this composition. Let's go right here. And this time I'm just going to remove this ellipse. We're just going to use this one. I think let's remove the paint. Yeah, let's remove the paint. You don't need that. And now using the ellipse, just slightly position this right here. You can increase the height if you want to, width if you want to. That's up to you. And then remove the transform. And then right here, don't go all the way to 0, just slightly reduce this. So something like this. And this time we can just remove this sound effect. And by the way, you can use any sound effect. This is just an example that I'm showing you. You can use any click sound effect that you have. So here you can see, this is how it looks. Now, of course, we can change the color. And this is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go with orange, some orange color like this. So if you play this, here you can see this is how it looks. Okay. And finally, right here, we can also do the same thing. Let's move this up. Copy them. And by the way I'm copying them is by using the Alt, by pressing the Alt on the keyboard and then just moving them. So that's how I'm able to do that. All right. Now for here, you can just go ahead and try something different. Or what you can do is you can just simply copy the same one from here. Bring this right here. Let's replace this one with this one. And this time we can have some changes. You can go ahead, remove the paint. You can go ahead and remove or in the color curves, we can just slightly do that. The same thing we did before. And in the transform, we can just move this all the way out like this. And also let's go over to this sound effect and change the pitch from here. So here you can see this is how it will look. And one more thing I would like to do is go over to make sure that you select the composition, go over to the composite mode, and from here you can try screen. Okay, perfect. One more thing I would like to experiment with is by adding a glow. So here you can see, let's keep this at 0.5 and the glow size at 100. So let's try. Yeah, this looks good. All right, so we have this done. As you can see, we have everything going smoothly. Let's check once again. Perfect. Right, so I also had one final sound effect, which is this one. So let me just add this. And we got this right here. Again, these sound effects is up to you. You can use any sound effect that you want. Let's copy this, move this right here. So these are just some of the sound effects that you can just add to add more texture to this. But overall, this is it. This is how you can create something similar to how this person called Bart VFX does in his videos. And this was pretty much just a breakdown of one of his videos. But of course, I have seen this same effect with the text and the background going on in many of his videos, which is why I decided to just break down step by step how to do the text animations, how to add the transitions, how to add the background for them. So I hope you found this video useful, and I will see you in the next one.